Over the past 8 years of performing professionally and teaching, I have heard a lot of misconceptions about the voice, and so I have put together my top 5 vocal misconceptions. My name is Justin Swain, and you're watching Voxologie. Coming in at number 5 on my list is the misconception that one must always push harder to reach higher notes. And sure, for some people that might be the case. Perhaps they just don't have enough vocal fold closure, meaning their adductor muscles are not working hard enough. But for the vast majority of us, we don't necessarily need so much excess breath pressure that all of a sudden our adductor muscles are overengaged, the voice becomes very pinched, sounding like that, unless we're going for that vocal affect in our tone. But most of the time we don't necessarily need it. We have 2 vocal folds about the size of our pinky nail. I don't know about you, but my pinky nail is not very big, so the idea of 2 little pieces of flesh regulating all of this breath pressure while also vibrating to produce sound, it's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. But if they are really pinched close together, they're not really free to do absolutely everything that we might want them to do when we're singing. For me, I know that if I am pushing too hard or if I'm over-engaging or I'm supporting too much, my pitch tends to go up, it goes sharp. And if I'm not engaging enough, if I don't have enough breath pressure, if I don't have enough tension, necessary tension at the vocal folds, then my tone is a little bit breathier and perhaps it might not actually tune correctly. It might go flat. So we're always looking for this equalization between perfect amount of breath pressure, perfect amount of vocal fold closure, and all sorts of other things when we're singing. However, you do not always have to push harder to reach higher notes. It's just, no. Number 4 on my list has to do with misconceptions about hydration for singing and speaking. Oftentimes my students will come into my studio with a gigantic hydro flask or their big giant Nalgene bottle, and I'll ask them, well, how was your hydration yesterday? I see that you're drinking water today. They say, it was okay, but I woke up and I made sure that I was ready to go for my voice lesson today. I've been drinking water since the moment I woke up. I'm peeing pale so I can sing wet. But that's not really how it works. And while it is wonderful that you are hydrating your voice, just realize that it takes about 24 hours or longer for that liquid that you ingest orally to actually reach the vocal folds. So it's wonderful that you're drinking all of this water the day of your concert or your voice lesson or whatever you have to do. However, you really want to be hydrating the days leading up to and the day of course, if you want to properly hydrate your voice. Speaking in terms of hydration for the voice, number 3 is the misconception about drinking tea or eating cough drops. While yes, it is wonderful to have a large mug of tea with lots of honey and lemon in it, just realize that that's actually not directly hydrating the voice. What that's doing is it's providing lubrication for the mucosal membranes in your throat. And yeah, it soothes the throat and it might feel like you're singing with lots of hydration and it's wonderful. But unless you're drowning or unless you swallow wrong or you are inhaling water vapors, none of that is actually reaching your voice in real time. And while tea and other beverages are wonderful tasting, and they might provide that soothing effect in our mouth or in our throat when we are drinking it, I caution you to avoid caffeinated teas and beverages as they have a diuretic or drying effect on the voice. And cough drops made with menthol or with other ingredients, they might have a drying effect on the voice or they might numb part of our vocal anatomy, and we want to actually be able to feel if we are in pain. If there's some kind of discomfort, we need to be able to feel that so that we know that perhaps we're doing something wrong. We might be causing damage. And while drinking tea and eating cough drops might have a wonderful soothing effect for your throat, just know that they are not directly affecting the voice. Number 2 on my list is the misconception that belting is bad. It is the absolute worst thing. How could you ever do that to your voice, Justin? What is wrong with you? I used to also be a part of the tribe that believes that belting is bad, but what I have found is that belief system tends to come from those of us with purely classical training in our background. Once I actually took voice science and anatomy coursework and began to supplement my learning outside of purely the bel canto tradition of singing, I began to realize that so much of what I had been taught in my classical technique was kind of in direct opposition to what we need to allow the voice to do in order to sing with a contemporary sound. Whether it be differences in laryngeal height or depth, or the way that we shape our embouchure when we are singing a more contemporary sound or a more classical sound, there are so many differences between the two. In my classical training, I was always taught to allow the larynx to relax into a downward position, in effect, that lengthened the vocal tract. And that lengthening of the vocal tract allowed for warmer or darker colors of the voice, or timbre or tone quality of the voice. And while that is wonderful for everything that I do in classical singing, it's kind of in direct opposition of when I am singing contemporary. My larynx needs to be able to go higher. The vocal tract needs to be able to shorten both at a laryngeal level as well as a buccal level where your lips are. I'm not going to get into all of the differences in contemporary versus classical techniques in this video. However, I encourage you, if you are interested in that topic, to look into programs such as Bel Canto Can Belto by Mary Saunders Barton, Somatic Voice Works by Jean Lovitry, the CCM Institute at Shenandoah University, Integrated Vocal Pedagogy, Melissa Cross's Zen of Screaming, the Estel model. All of those are wonderful resources. And I think an important point to make in wrapping up this misconception about belting being the worst thing that you could ever possibly do to your voice is to state that there's risk involved in nearly every aspect of how we use our voice on a day-to-day basis. Whether that be from whispering to calling across a room to shouting to laughing to singing, depending on how we are using our voice, there's going to be different levels of intensity involved in how we produce our sound. Different genres have different requirements. It's that simple. And there are just as many of us classical singers who damage our voices as contemporary singers. You just don't hear about it as much because it's kind of taboo in our community. And the number one misconception that I hear from students, as well as sometimes other teachers, is to sing from the diaphragm. And somewhere out there, a colleague of mine is just going, yup. And this misconception, I feel, stems from very, very well-meaning teachers. I know I have witnessed this so many times in choral singing, in solo singing. I've heard friends of mine who are voice teachers use this term. It's just not true, though. The diaphragm is one of the primary muscles used during inspiration or inhalation. However, it's not the only one. And when the diaphragm contracts at rest, it's kind of like an inverted salad bowl, or a salad bowl just upside down. When it contracts, it flattens, okay? And that sensation of it flattening, it mushes your internal organs down and away. So you might feel outward expansion around your midsection. And that's kind of where this misconception stems from, because we do have this false sense of something is pushing down and outward. And we do engage our core muscles oftentimes when we're singing, and so all of a sudden we feel like, oh, well, there's engagement there, and that we are also feeling that things are pushing out there, so the diaphragm must be really, really low. This is where my belly button's at, but it's actually attached really high, several inches higher than where many people oftentimes say, sing from your diaphragm. And another important point to note is that the diaphragm is not the only muscle involved in inspiration. Your sternocleidomastoids, they actually help with elevating, lifting your ribcage, or lifting the thorax. Our external intercostal muscles help with also opening up the thorax or expanding the thoracic cavity, and that's wonderful. And the diaphragm itself is not directly controlled during expiration or exhalation. It's actually a combination of our core muscles coming in, as well as our internal intercostal muscles, which are helping with closing the thoracic cavity as we are allowing air out. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, go ahead and click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know when I put out new videos. Be sure to check us out over on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll see you at the next video. Bye!